Hello people, I'm Ginnymetheral and I am a 4th generation witch, so I know everything. Well, I like to think I know everything. I probably only know a tiny bit. Today's video is my much anticipated and much loved October witchcraft. So first of all, we're going to discuss the overview for October. And then once we've done that, we will then move into the nitty-gritty detail of the days. So with that in mind, let's begin with our overview. So witchcraft in October has 2 main aspects as far as I can see. The first is that October is a month for divination. This is sort of brought to fruition at Halloween. Now, I'm not going to discuss Halloween in this video because Halloween needs a whole video all to itself because there's so much to talk about and so much fun things happening. So I'm going to do a separate video discussing all of those aspects later on in the month. However, Halloween does have some sort of precursors in the month of October, so it will crop up a bit. So do carry on watching. Now, divination was done mainly by the people to see what winter was going to bring and who you were going to fall in love with and marry, because this was a huge deal to our ancient ancestors, especially for women in the olden days. There was very little opportunity for them, obviously, apart from to get married and have children. That was literally their job. There was nothing else for them to do, work hard, get married, have kids, do as their husband bid. So it was a huge concern to them who they were going to marry. Hence why October, there's a lot of love divination about. The second thing that October brings to the table is balance. So the first couple of weeks in October are those that encompass harmony and balance. And this is all to do because we've just passed through the equinox, which happens in September and in March of each year. This balance and harmony comes together slowly and then is released slowly in the world. And so we have the wonderful Libra as the ascendant sign of October. And Libra is the only sign in the zodiac to have an inanimate object as their symbol, which is the symbol of the scales. This, of course, is all about balance and harmony. So October is great overall at negotiation, peacekeeping, and in sync with each other, which is what Librans love. They do love everything to be nice and balanced and harmonious. So this is the time to break those family feuds or deadlocks that you have been having, because the world likes to be harmonious and in balance. It is also the month of when we look towards the winter coming, and this is when a lot of people would try and search out clues as to whether we're going to have a hard winter. The gypsies call October the month of the hedgehogs because this was a major food source of them in October, and they were nice and big and fat at this time because they're just starting to go into hibernation. Gypsies would encase the hedgehogs in clay, covering all their prickles, then bake them in the oven. And when they broke the clay after cooking, the clay would take the prickles off the hedgehog and effectively skin it. I don't know if this is actually true or whether this happened, but that's what I was always told. Anyway, a nice fat hedgehog ensured that we're going to have a really hard winter. And likewise, if you see fat badgers at this time of year, which are most likely to because they've been eating all year, then we're also going to have a harsh winter. Not just the animals on the land, it's the animals in the sea that are going in the air. Of course, this is the great migration for all the birds who are flying south, and indeed the eels, who have lived with us now for up to 14 years, feel that it is their time to make their huge 2,000-mile migration back to the Sargasso Sea, where they will spawn. Although we have never ever seen or witnessed with our eyes this mass spawning event, we can only surmise that the eels spawn in the Sargasso Sea. For all we know, they probably, go down a wormhole or something. Like, nobody knows. We only surmise. The last of the harvest and should now be bought in. All those apples and hedgerow fruits such as the blackberries, bullaces, sloes, you name it, they need to come in during October. Of course, October is a time when plants are drawing back into themselves, which is why a witch will cut the plants in the summer, because although they might be still standing in the fields and the plants might still have leaves on them, for example the bay tree, even though that might still be green over the winter months, it has very much drawn its energies in, and so witches will cut the plants when they're growing and the sap is rising or at its peak in the summer months. And this ensures that the energy of the plant is at its greatest that we can use in our spells. So that was my overview for the month of October. Now let's go into the nitty gritty. So we'll start off with the 4th of October. This is the traditional day when the swallows leave our lands. You might have been seeing them lining up on the trees, but they're about to make their great migration and off they fly. It used to be believed that the swallows would dive down to the bottom of the ponds and hibernate in the lakes and the ponds of the United Kingdom, because we used to see them skimming across the ponds to pick up the insects, and then we never saw them again and until the spring, so that's where we thought they went. It's rather sweet, isn't it? They all dive down at the bottom of the river and sort of hibernate in a bubble or something. I'm not quite sure how we imagined that they did this, but that's what they did. The 6th of October is the night of the new moon. Now, the new moon this month rises in Libra, and Libra, as we have already looked at, is all about balance and harmony. So this is a great time to start on anything that needs balance and harmony brought back to it. For example, you might need to bring balance to your work and home life, and this is a good time to really put that plan into action. I'm going to try and do X amount for this work so I can spend the rest of the time with my family and bring harmony and balance to my life. So for example, if you want to buy a new house, it's a great time to start the negotiation for that on the 6th of October, because you will do very well in those negotiations if you use the moon to your advantage. Likewise, the 6th of October is a great day to bury the hatchet. If you've got any long-standing feuds with your neighbours or your family or some friends, now's the time to put them to bed. You will find that your overtures are received very well by the other party, no matter how much each of you are hurt, and that you will be able to negotiate a peace deal. Like Librans. Librans are terribly good at peace brokering, and in fact they should all be judges because they have a very good idea of the fairness and the equality of the world. I reckon that most people who are looking at equal rights or equal justice are Librans, because that is their nature. The 8th of October is the feast day of St Keynes, who was known as St Keynes the Virgin, and she was born in around the 400 ADs and spent all her time trying to bring Christianity to the Cornish. Now the Cornish, even now, I'm not 100% sure would call them Christians. They've always been of a right Celtic mind. And so she went down to Cornwall to try and proselytise to the Cornish, and she took over this well, which is near Liskeard. And St Keynes Well, she claimed it as her own, but I think it must have been a druidic focal point at the time. It was planted around with an ash, an oak, a willow and an elm, all of which are very powerful pagan symbols in the tree lore, and would have been protective and caring for that well. The well itself was said to have incredibly pure waters, and if you were a newly married couple and you went to the well, the first person who managed to drink from this well would be the dominant partner in that relationship. So it obviously had several magical powers, which I think St Keynes tried to take over. Not very well, because it's still celebrated for this today. So the 20th of October is, of course, the full moon, that wonderful time of the month. Now, this full moon was known as the blood moon or the hunter's moon, and that is because it was the time when the moon provided its much welcome light so that the people could finish the slaughter of their livestock for their winter stores or carry on hunting to stock up their winter stores. It has been known by many, many different words, actually. I particularly love the Native American names for this particular full moon, which I think forgive me if I get the pronunciation of this word right or wrong, because I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but Algonquin, something like the Algonquin tribe called it white leaves on grass moon, which I think means that the fall leaves are coming down, or it's frosty and it's on the grass still. Not sure. Otherwise it was known as the falling leaves moon, amongst many other. Of course, individual native tribes would have their own names for this moon, but they all sort of reflected, of course, the seasons that the moon held. The Anglo-Saxons thought that this particular full moon was therefore their first start of winter, and this would be a great night for a bonfire and a party, and is probably the precursor of Samhain or Halloween. In the UK, the 21st of October is National Apple Day. Now this, of course, was made up by the marketing board in the 1990s. However, they did base it on the sort of community apple days that would happen in October at this time of year. I mean, if you go into our village, there's always an apple pressing, and there has been for generations. I spent my life collecting apples at this time of year for the cider press, and we would do it by hand, and I still do that now. We'll go to a friend's house and help them press apples for the cider of the year, and a great fun day out it is too. Now, the reason why I talk about apples here is because apples are a huge part of October, and I might have to do an Apple October video, another one. I did one for last year, but there's still more to be said. But if you're interested, I'll put the video up here for you. However, I did want to talk about Merlin's apples in this video. I am sure that you are all well aware of the legend of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table and his wonderful wizard Merlin. Now, there are many places where the Isle of Avalon, which was Merlin's home, could be in this world. Some say it's in Glastonbury, some say it's in Cornwall. However, one of the places, which I think is the best, maybe strengths to being Merlin's home, is Bardsey Island, which could be the Isle of Avalon, because it was an island. But then again, nobody really knows. In 1998, there was a gentleman working as an ornithologist on Bardsey Island, and he noticed that there was a rather beautiful apple tree growing, and it had no disease on it whatsoever. The apples were pure and ripe. There was no rust, there was no scarring, there was nothing. There were just amazingly beautiful looking apples. So he took one, he ate it, and it was sort of a lemony, crunchy deliciousness to it, and then he decided that it was a bit rare for it not to have a single speck of disease on it. So he sent it off to the people, because we're quite keen on apples in the UK, and we have sort of apple, genetics testing area. Anyway, they tested this apple, and they said that this tree was utterly unique. There was no other apple in the whole world that they knew of, and this tree was an individual and the only tree in the whole world. The locals of Bardsey Island turned around and said, "Well, of course it is. Don't be so ridiculous. Don't you know that those are Merlin's apples?" And Merlin's apples is what they have remained. They have now grafted many of the branches onto rootstock, and they do it continuously so that you can buy the Bardsey Island apple, or Merlin's apple. And that is something that I want on my Christmas list. Just imagine having Merlin's apple tree growing in your garden. Unbelievably cool. I like that story because it's a modern story, but great historical twist. And of course, it's all true. Now, apples in those days were incredibly magical. They were put at gateway to doorways to the other world. And for Merlin not to have an apple tree in his backyard is as unlikely of him not having a wand. So this Merlin's apple tree is definitely going on my Christmas list. The 23rd of October is only for Librans, only because I'm feeling a bit brassic at the moment, and I thought that you might be too. This is a day, if you are a Libran, for you to make some money. That could be a little flutter on the lottery, a couple of quid on the GGs, or just doing that deal. Today's a money-making day for you, and I thought it's always nice to know these things. 23rd of October is one for you Librans. So I'm sorry, it's only a 12th of the population this really affects. But if you're born, on the cusp, I think you could probably take advantage of it. It's worth a try. A simple spell to make money is to take a green candle and set it alight. Let it burn, and whilst burning for about 5 minutes, just look at it and meditate on the amount of money that you would like to come your way and how you would like to receive that money. Once you've been thinking about how you'd like to make your money, blow the candle out and then slowly rub your hands in the smoke. And lo and behold, your money dream should come true. The 29th of October is the National Day for Cats. I was trying to get my cats to come and help film this part of the video, but they're deeply camera shy, and every time I produce a camera, they literally run a mile. And it's funny actually, isn't it? Because every time I turn on my electric blanket, they can hear that from a mile away and are literally there within seconds on the bed, purring away. I thought I'd give you a quick cat communion spell for National Cat Day. And this is, take your cat and have them on your lap and get them purring nicely. Then with your hands, get all your affection for them and push it into the cat. Not physically. Take your hands and just hold them over the cat. With your mind, push that affection into the cat. And then sit back and try and hear their response. The response might be a flicker in your mind of an image. It might be a remembrance of a scene. It might be that you think of your mother. That is probably the response of the cat. It's a great way to start communing with them. Cover the meeting, of course, is coming up in a week or so, where I'll put the details up on Patreon. Do go to www.patreon.com/Ginnymetheral and you will find details of the Coven meeting. It's a really great thing to come and join us, and you will learn. I have lots of students and they all enjoy it. Or so they tell me. They could be lying, but I'm reckoning not. Otherwise, I really want to know, what was your favourite part of the video? Do leave me a comment below. If you leave me a comment, it tells YouTube that you like my channel. Bizarrely, who knew? Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this video. Check me out on Instagram if you're missing me. I'll put my detail up here. And I will see you next week.